Hello, and welcome to Talking DV, a podcast that focuses on domestic violence and practical guidance on how to leave a relationship where your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whoever might be harming you. My name is Dean Hinton. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Tennessee. For almost a decade, I've handled cases involving people whose partners have been physically, emotionally, and financially abusive to them. By providing practical guidance to you, my guest and I will hopefully help you escape harmful relationships. In this next episode of Talking DV, Heather and I will focus on resources outside of Nashville, including rural communities. Then we'll turn our focus to how to prepare to leave an abusive relationship. Heather, what about resources outside of Nashville for DV survivors?
I really encourage you, if you're in these other counties, to see what you do have. So, for example, if you are in Williamson County, you have Bridges. If you are in Coffee or Bedford County, you have Haven Hope. If you're in Rutherford County, you have the Domestic and Sexual Violence Center. I mentioned there are 13 family justice centers similar to ours. They all look a little different because they reflect the services and the people in their community, but they're scattered all across the state. So really see what is happening in your community, and there may be things that are closer than you think. Tennessee has a statewide domestic violence hotline, so if you're not sure what's in your community, you can call that hotline and they can connect you. That number is 1-800-356-6767.
If I call that number, what happens?
If you call that number, someone will answer. They will ask you if you need help. They will probably start with, are you safe? Are you in a safe place right now? If you're not in a safe place right now, you need police or you need some intervention that we might not be able to help you with. But if you are physically in this moment safe, then let's see what you need. Do you need shelter? Let's connect you. Do you need to know where to get an order of protection? What county are you in? So they're going to start looking to connect you to the resources in your community.
I don't know if you mentioned this, Home Safe is in Sumner County. They're the anti-DV advocacy group, Home Safe. And I know that in the Cookeville area, Macon County, Jackson, some of the surrounding counties, it's Genesis House.
Yeah, and Cookeville has a family justice center.
I've been there, visited. Yeah. Very nice, very well done. I've been to the one in Knox County.
Knoxville.
I think that was the first one in the state of Tennessee.
It was, yeah.
And by the way, I just saw this in the news in March of 2025. The Memphis Safety Center closed?
Unfortunately, the Memphis Family Justice Center closed in March of this year. They lost funding, I believe. They didn't release a lot of details. The good news is their local government, Shelby County, is trying to pick it back up and take it over. So it would be structured kind of like our local one in Nashville, where it's a sort of department of the local government instead of a standalone. And so they are hoping, should all go well, maybe to open again early next year, which would be wonderful for their community because it's really a big loss.
I've tried early on in my career at legal aid, and as of the summer of 2025, I've been legal aid almost 9 years in October. Early on in my career, I tried to get a safety center out in Sumner County. There wasn't a groundswell of support. They're having other issues, financial issues and so forth. The timing wasn't right. I'd love to revisit that. It'd be great to see Sumner County. It'd be great to see every county have one, in my opinion. Family Safety Center, your family safety. I've been to the Gene Crow Center and the one in Knox County, the one in Cookeville. I think Hamilton County has one.
Hamilton County, so we've got Brownswood, Haywood County, Oak Ridge, Bluntville, Chattanooga. We've got one in Tazewell, Claiborne County, Johnson City, Knoxville, Nashville, obviously, Jackson, Scott County, Upper Cumberland has two, one in Cookeville, one in Livingston, and then the newest one is in Henderson County.
That was Jackson, Tennessee has one? Jackson, Tennessee? That is very impressive. I didn't know they had that many. Any more others planned other than the ones you named?
Not that I know of. I will say that is a huge priority for the statewide Office of Criminal Justice Programs. They're the ones who kind of administer the state and federal funding that goes towards things like domestic violence shelters, family justice centers, a lot of police departments, different things. And that is something that they have been really passionate about and really funded a lot of those, and so I think they are really hopeful for that, but I have not heard any new ones announced.
And just as a quick aside, perhaps, I've been to the Gene Crow Center a couple different times. I've taken 2 different tours, and it's named after a legal aid attorney, Gene Crow, who I've never met, but was very instrumental in domestic violence and work in the day. I'm not even sure what the years she was with legal aid. However, can you talk a little bit about the Gene Crow Center? What its purpose is and how long it's been around?
Yeah, so the Gene Crow Advocacy Center opened in 2014. I had to add a little bit there. We just had our 10-year anniversary last year. It is a smaller version of a family justice center. So it is kind of a miniature version. It is located within the courthouse in Davidson County. And so the purpose of it is similar in that it does bring partners together in one place for the survivor, but in particular, its unique aspect is that when a survivor comes in for court, instead of having to either wait in the courtroom where their perpetrator might be sitting, one row away from them, or having to not really knowing where to go, having to wait in the hall, dreading seeing this person or their family, they can go into our center. They go through security, so again, their perpetrator can't follow them in. They have breakfast, they have a drink, they sit in a comfortable space. They can talk to their attorney, they can talk to an advocate, they can get some of those additional resources like safety planning, the danger assessment. They can be connected with all of the resources at the Family Safety Center, so they can get appointment with counseling and all of that stuff while they're waiting. And then when their case is called, one of our advocates who's monitoring court will call down and say, hey, Jane Doe's case just got called. Can somebody escort her up to courtroom C? So they're waiting, instead of waiting 2 hours in an uncomfortable courtroom where they might be face to face with a perpetrator, they're waiting in a comfortable space where they can eat, they can have toys for their kids to play with, they can get some services and resources, and then go up when their actual case is called.
One of the things I noticed when I toured was, and you may have said this already, is that the prosecutors actually come down.
Yeah.
There's a conference room where they meet with survivors and can discuss their case, and then the prosecutors might go back up and see what needs to happen before the survivor has to come up to limit contact with the abuser.
Yeah, we really want to make it as easy for them as possible, because just being at court is already intimidating, right? It's intimidating for me to walk in, and I work there part of the time,
To your point, this is my perspective. You're not saying this, I am, but as a male, I walk up there and the security guard's immediately on top of me. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. I don't know if they said you don't belong here, but like, what are you doing here? Like, and I think there's 2 doors. For safety, there's 2 doors you have to go through in order to get inside. And one of the other things I learned about from Gene Crow, my tour there, is that survivors of domestic violence often show up to court hungry.
Oh, yeah.
And so they'll have food there ready for this, because it's hard to testify if your mind goes blank because you don't.
You're hungry, you're thirsty, you don't know what to expect, so you leave early. You want to get there, because a lot of times court starts, quote unquote, at 8. But that's just when the courtroom opens and the judge gets there. Your case might not be called till 11, but they tell you to get there till 8. That's when court starts. You've got to park. You've got to walk across the street, because you got to park in the parking garage or wherever you can find parking downtown. So you're rushing in the morning. You're not taking the time to eat breakfast. You get there, you're hungry, you're stressed out. You had maybe to miss a day of work, you had to pay for parking, all of these things.
You might have to bring some children with you.
You might have to bring your kid, you might have to wrangle your kids, you might have had to get a babysitter, whatever that looks like. And then you walk inside and you walk into this space that literally looks like a living room, somebody's house. And they say, we've got coffee, we've got juice, we've got food for your kids, we've got fresh pastries, have breakfast. Do you need to meet with your attorney? They're here for you. We'll tell you when your case is called. Until it's called, just relax, just rest. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, there's a place for your children to play.
Yeah, there's a place for your children to play. If you have questions about what to expect, we can kind of walk you through it, and just breathe for a second, right? Just feel a little less frantic before you get in the courtroom.
One of the things I noticed about Gene Crow is just the environment. Someone thought ahead of time I think you mentioned this already. It looks like a living room. It's just very comfortable. Mm-hmm. It's not. It seems like a stress-free environment walking in the door.
Yeah, we tried both centers. Now I will say they look very different.
Right.
the kind of style of decoration is very different, but we really tried to make them both extremely comfortable, extremely comforting. We did not want either of them to look sterile, to look clinical, to look like somewhere like a doctor's office waiting room or a police, what you would in your head think of as like a police station. We wanted you to walk in and think, oh, this is somewhere that if I have to, sit here for an hour and wait for my court case, or if I'm sitting here and like waiting for the commissioner to review my order of protection, I'm comfortable. I'm relaxed. I feel okay. I don't feel claustrophobic. I don't feel like I'm in this institutional setting. I don't feel like I'm being observed. I feel just comfortable. We also thought about that for the kids. We really intentionally in both centers wanted the children who may have to come either for their own services or to tag along with their caregiver to have a place to play where they can be relaxed, where it's not like I have to sit still and I can't talk and I have to behave for 2 hours because I'm in a courtroom. We really wanted them to feel just like kids, just like normal kids in the time that they're there.
So let me ask you some what-if questions.
Sure.
And I don't think they'll be too tough for you, because, and I'm going to answer this first question myself, but then so what if I am a domestic violence survivor out in a rural county? And I'm going to tell you, because I do practice in rural counties. Yep. We're in Gallatin, Tennessee right now. If I'm a survivor out there, my options, as far as everything we talked about, employment and so forth, as a one-stop shop is probably not going to happen unless I get to Cookeville. To answer my own question, what are my options? The courthouse, or I've been told, I don't know this firsthand, I've been told thrift stores are sometimes an option. But other than that, if you know of any other options out in rural counties in Tennessee, what if you were a survivor out there? What would you do?
A hidden gem is your hairstylist, because we have passed a law a couple of years ago in Tennessee that every person who is licensed as a stylist or whatever the official term is, everyone who is licensed as a stylist in Tennessee has to have domestic violence education. So they are trained about domestic violence and what resources exist around them. So that is a hidden gem because, and we did that specifically, actually the YWCA was really a driving force behind that, specifically because not all the time, but often, even when someone is otherwise isolated, a perpetrator might allow them to go to a salon. And so that may be a place where they can go, even if they're being isolated from family and friends. Usually it is not always, but especially I have found in more rural counties, it tends to be a more kind of single gender space, which is kind of why abusers trust it sometimes. And frankly, it's a space where somebody's looking pretty closely at you. So if you have injuries, they can kind of notice those red flags. You're predisposed to kind of chat with the person who's cutting your hair or coloring it. So that is a good place. And then doctor's office, hospital should also have training. They don't always, fortunately, but that is becoming more and more the norm. So I highly suggest both of those places. If you don't have anywhere else you think you can go in your community, that might be a really good kind of under the radar resource.
So I am in a rural county and I'm going to get my hair cut, and I do trust the person cutting my hair to maybe disclose something to him. My abuser's not with me. What do I say? Like, what do I do?
Yeah, so you may say, hey, I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm having trouble in my relationship. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Can I talk to you about this? Or maybe, do you have any ideas about where I can go? Do you have something I can connect to? Now, again, they are very specifically getting training, so they are not going to be like blown away by this disclosure, or shouldn't be, I will say, because they are required to have this training. So however you want to kind of bring it up, however is comfortable for you, I think is okay. But opening it up with, I'm having trouble in my relationship, or fighting a lot, or I don't know if I could go home, but I don't know what else to do, can kind of open the door for that conversation.
A doctor's office, same sort of situation.
Same sort of situation.
When I said I answered my own question, I recommended the courthouse. The reason is, and it'll depend on what county you go to, but how they're going to treat that. But if you go there and say that there's some sort of injury or some sort of incident at your home, they could probably refer you, even if you don't fill out an order protection petition, they could probably refer you to the advocacy agency in your area. For example, Home Safe or Genesis House.
Your court clerk is a great resource because they are going to know what exists in your community by and large. And a lot of times in those rural communities, they are the people who are charged with that order of protection paperwork anyway.
I have noticed, and hopefully this doesn't come out sexist or whatever, but a lot of deputy clerks are females. And in my experience, they do seem to have their finger to the pulse of that sort of issue, just because they do get a lot of orders of protection filed in the county and so forth. They sort of an informal network. That's just my experience, and hopefully, I should say my limited experience, because I don't practice, 90-something counties in Tennessee. I don't practice in all those counties, but just in my limited experience, that seems to be the case. Okay, what if you're listening to this podcast and rural, not rural, wherever you are, and you just want some information, basic information? What should you do if you have interpersonal domestic violence situation?
Yeah, if you just want some information, maybe it's that you are trying to figure out if this is your relationship, if this is someone you love, you're trying to figure out next steps, you're trying to get more ideas. There's a lot of places you can go. I will say, again, just because this is my organization and I'm extremely familiar with what's on the website, we have a ton of resources, including a lot of videos that are very short, kind of 5 minutes or less, that were created specifically for survivors and potential survivors, that really kind of walk you through healthy and unhealthy relationships, walk you through the power and control wheel, walk you through the danger assessment, walk you through orders of protection. So all of that is on our website. We have a ton of resources about planning for your safety, a ton of resources about orders of protection in general. Now, they're going to be a little bit different depending on where you live, what state you're in, and all of that, but that'll at least give you kind of a broad outline of an idea. There are also some resources there for how to talk to someone about domestic violence if, you or a loved one are experiencing it. There's also a more national organization. There are many, but one that I recommend is the National Network to End Domestic Violence. You also have the National Hotline, which I have the number for. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7233. That's 800-799-7233. Or you can text the word BEGIN to 88788. So that, again, very similar to the Tennessee hotline. They're going to first ask you if you are safe, and then they are going to start with, what state are you in, what county are you in. They're going to start connecting you to your local resources. Again, my website, or our website, is OFS, so stands for Office of Family Safety, ofs.nashville.gov, and has all of those resources and more. We also have a little chat function on our website. So if you just have a question about, say, I'm in this situation, do I qualify for an order of protection? Can I file for it? You can ask in the little text box. One of our advocates will reply to you and answer your question as best they can. So that is a resource as well. And we have a statewide coalition, the Tennessee Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, that also has a ton of great resources.
You brought up a good point here, and you may not have realized it. And you said there's a lot of places where help is available. And that's one of the reasons I want to do this podcast, is because perhaps there's a disconnect between all these places that could offer services and the public that needs them.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just mentioned a few minutes ago that your Family Safety Center, how do most people find you? Through word of mouth or through the police department. It still seems like there's not enough information for whatever reason. Not to get into a blame game or anything, but there still seems to be that lack of awareness that maybe there needs to be in order to help tackle this problem.
I think the thing is, we never think it's going to happen to us. We never think it's going to happen to us. We never think it's going to happen to someone we love. So we might be at a community event where my office has a table, where your office has a table. I don't need that. That doesn't apply to me. Or I might even go get one of like the cute pens that we give out, but that doesn't apply to me. So I might hear it and kind of discard it. And so later on, when maybe I realize it does apply to me, or it applies to my best friend, or it applies to my brother, or whoever that may be, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know what resources there are. I don't know what to do. And again, I think you've mentioned this a few times as well. When we are in that trauma and that fear and that sleeplessness and that anxiety, it also fogs our brain. It makes it harder for us to think. It makes it harder for us to process. So even things that we might have heard of in passing or might have kind of stored somewhere in our brain, recalling is more difficult. So, I think the more we can get the word out, the more we can share about each other's work, about the work that's happening all across the state and all across the country, because we're all sort of partners working toward the same goal.
You mentioned the 1-800 number, the national. So hypothetically, if one were to hear this podcast outside the state of Tennessee, for whatever reason, just if they stumbled upon it or whatever, the same sort of information would apply. Just there are starting points here.
There are starting points here. Family justice centers are a national model. Almost every state has at least a couple now. Orders of protection are sometimes called something slightly different. Sometimes they're called restraining orders. Sometimes they're called protection orders, different things, but they all kind of serve the same function. And normally, if you go into your court clerk in whatever state you're in and you say, I want an order of protection, they're going to be able to parse out what you want, typically. All of this is pretty broadly applicable. And if you call that a national hotline or you text the national hotline, they are going to connect you to whatever that local resource is in your community, who can then kind of drill down to the more specifics, because the processes for getting an order of protection look different everywhere. I know there's some states where the order of protection is kind of married to the police call, and it moves through the criminal justice system, whereas in Tennessee it's a civil matter. So it just depends on your state. So those nuances are going to be a little different, but look for your local domestic violence agency, look for your local family justice center. There are people in your community, however small it is, there are people who want to help.
Okay, I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I'm following your advice, and I'm starting to access websites, and I'm starting to maybe make some phone calls. Now, how do I make sure that my abuser isn't monitoring me? For example, if I go to a website, there's ways to safely get out of that without someone knowing you're in that website.
Yeah, so the vast majority of domestic violence awareness agencies are aware that these stalking tactics are used. So almost all of our websites are my OFS website included, the National Coalition website that I mentioned. We all have a safe exit button on our website. So if somebody comes into the room and you click that, it'll take you instantly to the front page of Google. Go into your Google search history and just delete that search. It is one quick click. If you are on a Chrome browser, so Google Chrome, I don't know about other browsers, but I know for sure Google Chrome, you can search in an incognito browser. So I think it's kind of at the top right of your screen, there's like a little right click option, or you can just Google incognito browser and it'll tell you what to do. You can search in an incognito browser and it will not put it on your history at all, so you won't have to erase it. That is what I suggest. Search on the incognito browser, know where on the page that little safe exit button is if you need to click it. It's usually big and it's usually in the top right or the bottom right corner typically. And that will keep kind of your tracks clear if somebody else shares your computer, if they kind of look after you. That is a good kind of safety measure that you can take.
If my abuser sees that I actually went, can I say that I was doing it for a friend? I mean, is there a go-to, or just whatever you can to survive that moment, just do it?
I would say whatever you can to survive that moment always. But think of a plan. Part of safety planning, right, which is something that we talk about a ton. And,
Yes.
and all safety planning is, I mean, it's kind of literally what the name says, just planning for your safety. And there are a ton of strategies. Most survivors who are in these relationships are already enacting strategies, even kind of subconsciously, to keep themselves safe.
Right. Survivors know how to survive.
Yeah, they're predicting the behavior of their perpetrators. So I would say planning an excuse ahead of time. So if they see that you went on this website, oh, my friend Tina from work, she's always complaining about her boyfriend and I'm just really worried about her, and I told her I would find this phone number for her. Whatever it is, have it in your mind, have it in your brain, and just plan in advance. Especially if you're somebody who is not great at thinking on their feet. Some are better and worse at that. Especially when you're afraid. It can make it a lot harder.
Yeah.
If you have a few strategies of what you can say, that can be helpful. Could be my friend Tina. It could be, oh, I was listening to this podcast and they mentioned this website and I wanted to know what it was. Anything that you feel like you are the one who knows your perpetrator best, right? You're the one who knows the ins and outs of how they react to certain trigger words and what might set them off more. So that is a big factor around safety planning, is thinking through your unique and specific situation.
I grabbed a few things, maybe off a website, I can't remember where I got it from, but keep your keys in your purse in the same area all the time so you know where to grab it and run. Have a plan for your job, plan for your school, plan for your home, plan for when you're out in public. Know where the phone is in the room, plan an exit, with a room with an exit. If you're planning an escape route, make sure it's a room with an exit. I think you said this already, get trusted neighbors to help. Use a prepaid telephone with a private number so they can't access it there. Know where to go to ask for an order of protection. For example, in Sumner County, just like in Davidson, and I started to do some research for this podcast, that's one of the counties around here where you can get a 24/7, ask for it 24/7, 365 days.
Yeah.
From what I understand, not all counties are like that.
Not all counties are like that. Every county is a little bit different. So really look into what it is in your specific community. And most often, even if the court clerk is not the one who's going to be doing it, they can at least point you in the right direction.
As an attorney, I do not take divorces where the people are cohabitating. That if you file for divorce, what's going to happen? It's going to escalate the violence. That's sort of a time of danger. I do get people asking me all the time to get them divorced. And the first thing the client's going to do is say, if I file for divorce while they're still in the same household, is, hey, you need to get rid of this abusive person. And the judge may not do that. So then the constant fight or the constant complaint to me is going to be, hey, this person needs to leave the household. And they may not do something that rises to the level of an order of protection to get rid of them. But all I wish to say is leave first and divorce second. Once you are separated from each other, you can change your locks, you get motion sensor lighting, keep a journal, vary your routes to work and to the store. Children's issues, you might have to start thinking about how you're going to deal with that, but I'm going to just, that's a whole probably different podcast episode.
Yeah.
Children's issues, but for the short term, make sure they're safe, take them with you, and then figure it out later.
Yeah, make sure you're talking to the school so they know who's a safe pickup and drop off person. That kind of thing is a quick one for kids, but that can be a whole episode. I did want to dig a little deeper into the journal one because I think that's a underrated but really good tip for two reasons. For an order of protection, having a journal where you've documented dates where incidents have happened, times where it's happened, even just a short sentence or two, that can be really good for that order of protection narrative, showing that pattern of behavior, that escalation of behavior. Same thing for stalking. A really important document to keep for cases involving stalking is what we call a stalking log. That is a fancy name for literally just a list. Date, time, what happened, if there was a witness. It doesn't have to be super detailed. It can be one little bullet point. The legality of stalking really hinges on the pattern of multiple incidents. So keeping that record and having it to show Tuesday the 5th, I saw his car drive by my house 5 times between 6 and 8. And Thursday, he sent flowers to my work. Things that, again, divorced of context, we might not understand are frightening and stalking, but when you are keeping it in that log, showing it within the context of that pattern can be really powerful in building that case.
Got it already. Is there anything else about safety planning you think is important that we need to emphasize before we move on to the next topic?
I want to say safety planning is not just about when you're leaving. You can plan for your safety if you are still cohabitating, if you haven't broken up with the person yet, if you have to co-parent because there's a court order, if you are leaving right now, if you left 6 months ago but you're still co-parenting. Safety planning is an evolving practice that you can use at any stage in this relationship and this process, and factor in your unique circumstances. Do you have kids? Do you have pets? Is there a gun in the home? Does the person know where you work? Are you in school? All of these things can be factored into building this plan. We have a lot of resources on our website. I mean, a ton that help you kind of think it through, including different circumstances like kids and pregnancy and things like that, in several different languages as well. But it can be as simple as, where do I go every day? Or where do I go every week? Who are my trusted people there? And what are my strategies there for if something happens? It doesn't have to be complicated. What you're trying to do is think of, how can I plan for something that might go wrong? Because if it does go wrong, then I already have a plan. I can be calmer, I can be more confident to get myself through it.
I remember what I wanted to say. You had mentioned the journaling and you mentioned the stalking log. Those are important tools. The only thing I would add to that is that can get into evidence. The log itself, if it's written close to the time of the event that happened. For example, if I get slapped at 2:30 on a Thursday, I try to write it within a short period of time after it happened in the journal. I know you may not be able to get away right then, but as close to the time as possible, that should get into evidence as evidence that the thing occurred. So I would just sort of add to that a little bit.
No, that's great. And it can be a physical journal. It can be a notes app on your phone. It can be Google Drive. It can be an email that you send to yourself. Just all that is required is that you are documenting it in some way.
I'd like to thank Heather Herrmann for talking DV with me. She's the Director of Education at the Office of Family Safety in Nashville, Tennessee. In the next episode of Talking DV, Stacey Scruggs will discuss the Safe at Home program, what it is, how to apply, and whether it's right for you. Thank you for listening to Talking DV, a podcast that focuses on providing you with practical information on how to leave an abusive relationship. I'm your host, Dean Hinton, encouraging you to seek legal counsel for your specific case. If you cannot afford an attorney, contact your local legal aid office. Many legal aid offices often offer free legal clinics where you can speak to an attorney face-to-face about your specific legal problem. There's no reason to give up hope.